Hello, everyone. My name is Laura Villalobos, WIS's Community Manager, and I would like to welcome you to this WIS's webinar with Dell on the topic of influence changes without authority. But before we start, I'd like to introduce you a little bit more about the WIS's organization. We often go by our acronym WIS's, as in We Sisters, because that's exactly what we are, a global cyber sisterhood. We are a 501c3 with over 8.7 thousand members in 70 countries. WIS is a premier organization with a global reach dedicated to bring together women in cyber. Our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. All of our initiatives and programs are made possible by our supporting strategic partners. We have our professional affiliates, student chapters, equity advocacy committee, mentor mentee programs, speaker bureau, job board plus, and so much more. You can view our training and programs and initiatives on our website at wises.org to learn more about different ways to get involved within the WISES organization. We all of our wonderful initiatives to our strategic partners, our tier one partners being Alchemine, Amazon, AT&T Cybersecurity, Battelle, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon University Software Engineer Institute, Cisco, Ford, Fortinet, Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Optum, India National Life, and Sentinel One. A friendly reminder to ask questions throughout the webinar. You can put them in the chat on the right-hand corner. We have the experts here today with us, and they look forward to hearing from you in the audience. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our WISES newsletter at wises.org to stay up to date to any upcoming WISE events and trainings. And with us today, we have our strategic partner, Dell, on the topic Influence and Change Without Authority. And I'll hand it over.
Thanks, Laura. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this talk on influencing change without authority. I'm glad you're here. Today, I'm going to be talking about 5 different topics, one building upon the other. First, I'm just going to do a brief introduction and then discuss some of the challenges with influencing change without having direct authority, and how to build influence, some of the tools and techniques for that, and then using that influence to create change that really has impact. At the end, we'll have room for Q&A and discussion. There'll be plenty of time for that. Feel free in the meantime to put questions in the chat, and then we'll look at them at the end. For most cybersecurity professionals, the people we have to lead are not in our direct line of authority. This is true whether working as a cybersecurity consultant or working in a large organization like Dell. Typically, the people that we have to influence are really outside of our line of authority. In fact, they may even be in another organization altogether. For example, at Dell Technologies, I work in the product and application security organization. And that organization is part of the overarching corporate security and resiliency organization. Our product security engineers work with product development teams to ensure that their products and services are developed with security built in at every stage of the life cycle. So, from concept, definition, development, and on through delivery, all the way to, during operations, making sure operations include vulnerability management and vulnerability response according to our service level objectives. This is really something that is important, but because we're in a different organization than, say, the business lines, the product line business leaders, part of the job is to influence those leaders to make room in their plans and make product security important, make remediations important when findings are found. Not that nobody thinks they're important, but everybody has a lot of their own targets for revenue and timelines and so forth. And so the job of a product security engineer, like many cybersecurity professionals, is really to influence change without being able to directly make it happen. And so what I'll be doing in this talk is I'm going to be using an article that was written by Erica Hirsch called Leading Outside Your Authority. And this article was published by the Harvard School of Public Health. And it's a great article. It's really a quick read, so I'd encourage you to read it. And what I'll be doing is just going through some of the guidance from the article. I'll have some focus on, in particular, on women in cybersecurity, women professionals in general, not just in cybersecurity. And I'll be using myself and my experience as a kind of case study. I'll be giving examples from my years in working in the field. So just a brief timeline history of me. I've been around a while, so it's nice to look back. Although I am still right in the middle of my career. I'm not by any stretch done, but I did graduate from college back in 1986, just to give you a sense of how long I've been working. And I got into the security area in 1995 before I joined RSA. So I was doing work in a startup for the federal government on a secure desktop using some cryptographic algorithms. And really, that's where I really learned on the job. And then at RSA, I started there at the end of 1999, and I was a developer working on security products, like authentication products and PKI products and so forth. And then I eventually moved over to EMC, and there were a number of acquisitions. So RSA was acquired by EMC. I moved over to EMC and became a product and application security engineer and architect. I was there in the product security office, and then I subsequently moved to Dell. And so I've been, Dell acquired EMC, and I've been working in the Dell Security and Resiliency organization since 2020. I was working in product development for a couple of years before that. So I think the thing I might emphasize here is that something that's been really helpful to me in my career in security has been to have a perspective both from a product development perspective, what's important to product development. I would also spent a couple of years in product management focused on security. It really has helped me to understand the business, understand the other side of the coin, if you will. That when, as a security professional, somebody in the security organization now, when I'm talking with those developers, I can better understand their perspective, what timelines and challenges they're facing. So it has been really helpful to kind of be, if you will, on both sides of the coin. Today, currently, my most recent work was with our Apex cloud security work, defining a strategy for trusted cloud and services. But for the last year, I've been working on end-to-end security, including supply chain security. So I mostly work on strategic projects at this point. So enough about me. Let's go ahead and start talking about some of the challenges. And, like I said, I'm going to focus really on challenges that are faced by women in the field. There are a lot of, we all face challenges. So whether you're a woman or a man or, any human at work, there are going to be challenges. But I will kind of put some emphasis on that. And starting, one of the difficult challenges is just around gender bias. And in particular, I think the self-perception or the struggles with self-perception that can come with gender bias. Like when I say self-perception, give you some examples in the next slide, but things like maybe not having as much confidence or feeling, like I'll be heard, let's say. There's also challenges just around functional silos. One of the things that can be really difficult to do and is really necessary in order to influence outside one's area is to be able to think outside the box, think outside the functional silo, step away and kind of look at the bigger picture and work with other people, get to know other people outside the particular function you're in. So we'll talk about that. Work-life balance is a challenge always, and I think that just goes without saying. I'm really glad the company I work for has flexibility, but that is a challenge, and keeping that imbalance is critically important for being as effective as possible. Then finally, just the ability to sell ideas to others. I think the idea of selling as an engineer can be a little daunting. So, what are some of the challenges that we face with selling our ideas to others? Because selling is absolutely important as far as being able to influence others. We can't dictate; we have to convince them to kind of buy into our ideas and our passion for why we think what we're asking for is important. So, and I think the first thing, and this one of the things that's super important, and it is talked a lot about in the article, but it has been really important to me, has been to become aware, to have some self-awareness. So I'm going to talk about that first. So this is really important because, um, you know, there's cultural messages out there, which you can see on the far right column. And most of these are talked about in the article, but I added a couple. I mean, these are ones that I've been, like I say, I've been doing this I've been working since '86. And as an engineer, I've certainly encountered all of these messages, or in implicitly or explicitly. Um, but the challenge is, how do we translate sort of those implicit sort of messages? How do we translate that into self-talk and becoming aware of that self-talk? And the only way for me to really become aware is by having support from other people and talking it out with them, mentors, coaches, it's people outside work. Um, but some of the self-talk I've learned over the years that I have that may resonate with you is, one is that, thinking that others will see me as a fraud, like, who do you think you are? Kind of thing. And then having to, feeling like, oh, I have to work extra hard to prove myself, or push in a meeting, interrupt, talk loud, anything to be heard, because the last thing I want to do is be that invisible person in the meeting. The other one is, as an engineer, I see myself as a geek. And I mean, the last thing I feel comfortable with is going out and networking with a group of people. Like, I don't go to networking events. It's not my comfort zone. I'm the one who would rather put the lampshade on my head, frankly. So finding ways to work with that, that's a personality thing. But I can still build a network, but maybe in a different way than I tell myself it has to be done. Like, for example, I like to build relationships more on one-on-one. I like to have more connections. I can do that. And by doing that, build a network. The other one is just being afraid to promote myself. I'm great at promoting other people and giving them credit, but I've learned that that not everybody is going to notice my work. I have to promote it. I have to say something about what I've done, and in a really balanced way. And having people, going back to mentors, et cetera, people in the room, people who have my back, is really important, because they also help with me with that promotion, if you will. So just a couple of specific work examples, kind of making it real. And one I have is, just the thing about being seen as a fraud. I once was asked years ago, when I was at RSA, to start getting active in the IETF's standards bodies. There was a security working group, and I was asked to, as part of my presence at one of the meetings, to present at a TLS working group meeting. And I won't go into the details, but TLS is the transport layer security protocol. And I was in the room. There may have been one other person in the room who was a woman. There were about 60 people. And when I presented about bringing RSA's proprietary algorithm into the protocol, there was a very negative response. There were people lining up, one after the other, coming in and bashing the idea. And then the area director who was up front would laugh at anytime somebody threw a particularly, juicy comment in there. And some people just kept going back in line. And what I did, and this was like 15 years ago, but what I did is I immediately thought, they don't believe I'm for real. They don't think I understand this. This is personal to me. And so I tried to argue with them. And the more I tried to defend or respond, the worse it got. And it was really a hard lesson I learned. I went back to work, and I was talking to my mentor, and he pointed out, he said, what you could have done instead of trying to come up with a response is just say, I'm not prepared to answer that. And I will say, I do that now. Like, it's okay to say, I don't know. But I was so afraid that because I was afraid of how they would perceive me, that I kind of dug a hole for myself in the course of that meeting. And that's just an example where it's like trusting that people will believe in me, that they don't see me as a fraud. I may see myself as one, but it's okay to say, I don't know. I don't, for the better of the meeting, for the good of the group. It's okay to say, oh, let me come back to you on that. And the other one is just around, I've highlighted there, around kind of pushing, interrupting or diving into a meeting and trying to be heard. Sometimes it's necessary to speak up, definitely important to. The balance is, for me, sometimes I've come across as being a little bit inflexible. So pausing and listening instead of charging forward. And I could give more detailed examples, but I think what I'll do is proceed from here. I think that kind of makes the point. But the main thing I want to say is we have challenges, and that's okay. Like, all of us have these challenges, but what do we do with them? We can have the challenges, but still learn to develop leadership skills and qualities based on where we are in terms of our own personality and our own, where we live, how whatever makes up us, we can build this leadership skills we need to influence change that is needed in order to get our jobs done more easily. And so really the idea is to start where you are. And some of the 4 triangles on the right come straight from the article. I'm going to double click on those and just give a couple of examples. So, just right off the bat, like, in terms of establishing credibility, this is a summary of what the article was talking about, but it's also consistent with my experience that people will, in order for people to be convinced of our ideas or to even really take us seriously, putting aside any cultural or challenges or anything, we have to have credibility. I mean, it's like the credibility is derived from a number of things. One is just technical excellence. So I do work hard. I think that working hard is important, but I don't think working too hard is important, is worth it. I think that it's finding that balance. Like, I've learned that working within my limitations, not killing myself and my, taking too much time away from my family, but really finding the balance in terms of my health, my well-being, and so forth, working hard to develop my ideas and coming from the place of strength from my belief in the work I've done has been really important for credibility. Like, if I'm going to ask people to believe in what I've done, I need to do the work. The other thing, though, is to be consistent. So that kind of speaks right to integrity. So, if I say I'm going to do something, do it. And I think that has paid off really well for me. People can count on me. But also, if I believe there's a product security vulnerability, and I believe strongly it needs to be fixed, it's important to be consistent there. Like, if somebody says, "Well, I don't agree with you. I don't want to, do anything about that." Well, does that mean my opinion needs to change? Or can I listen to their opinion and then maybe come back and say, okay, how can I still consistently believe in the importance of this. How can we work together to find a solution? The other thing is just taking ownership of my work, not quoting my boss. Like, I'm not saying, oh, well, he gave this work to me and he said. It's like, well, no, this was my work and I can take responsibility for it. I think that's having that ownership also builds credibility. So establishing relationships is super important too. So, like all the things we hear, the more relationships we build inside our functional area and across the organization, the more sort of personal capital we develop to help influence others. I mean, we're all humans and we're all people in work trying to achieve common goals. Typically, I mean, we're all working for whatever organization we're working for, and to kind of see that everybody's trying to accomplish something good. So being a team player, helping out where possible, and networking and mentorships, understanding and adapting to others. So I just give a particular example from my career on, really the understanding and adapting to others, also networking and mentorships. Um, I've had some amazing, in terms of networking and mentorships, I've had some amazing mentors throughout my career. I haven't been limited to just women mentors. I've had mentors who were men, mostly men. And I would say what's important is that do they have what I want? Can I learn from them? It's not like when I get a mentor, I have a responsibility to say, okay, what can I learn from you, and what can I bring to the relationship? And I think that that's been really important. I've had mentors who I had one guy who was really senior. There was a mentorship program in my company that I availed myself of. And I think that, again, I do better connecting one-on-one. And so the mentorship program was incredibly valuable for me. And so I would say that um, we would just study. We would talk about influence and as a topic. And we, just getting another person's perspective was really valuable, and becoming a mentor myself as well helped me to better understand how different people kind of operate. Um, I think then the other thing is to have a mission. Like, what is my mission? Our organization, in the Security and Resiliency Organization, we have a mission statement to build security in, to protect our customers, protect everything that Dell does. From a security, resiliency, and privacy point of view, that's our mission. When I work with other people, it's really important, and in my relationships with them, for me, believing in that mission helps me when I'm talking with people in other organizations and networking in meetings like workshops and so forth, to promote my ideas. If I really believe I really believe in the importance of making sure our products are secure, and the importance of protecting our customers, and that rubs off on people. So I think ultimately, yeah, we're all in it together. The last thing I'd say on this one is just to that it's really helped me to learn about other people's work styles, and to be willing to adapt to their styles as well. So, for example, product managers may work differently than, say, an engineer. We may think differently, and so it's helped me to do things like take personality tests, do team building exercises, to learn how about different ways in which I think and they think and how we best work together. So my organization has done exercises like that that I've found really helpful. Um, the other one is just around how do we communicate? So synthesizing and simplifying. It was talked about in the article. Because of my, some of my own challenges, I've tended to over explain, over educate, over everything, and I lose people. And in the last couple of years, I've been dealing a lot more with presenting to senior leadership and executives, and I've had to learn how to what we call bottom line up front, really synthesize things down to what is the most important thing. If I had 10 seconds with them, what do I want them to have as a takeaway? What's most important? And so really being able to communicate clearly, and that goes back to confidence, being confident. And that I've had performance reviews in the past where people would say, "Oh, Andrea's really smart. She really knows her stuff." But sometimes I remember years ago, I had one where feedback was, "We really think that what she's saying is right, but we have troubles having trusting in what she's saying because she doesn't seem very confident when she says it." That's a hard bit of feedback to get. But first of all, it was nice to hear people thought I was smart, but also, that confidence is so important. So sometimes it's just acting as if I'm confident, but having that mission behind it also gives me confidence, and confidence helps me simplify my communication, distill it down to those important points. I don't have to provide all the evidence before I make a claim that I believe in, using the data I have. I don't need to go in first and go into all the gory details and lose people. Just what is the most important thing. And so then, kind of tied to all this is just learning from feedback, being open to feedback, challenging our assumptions, and really listening and being patient with other people. Those are honestly, patience is one of my bigger challenges, but learning to listen and having humility, like, oh, maybe what they're saying is really, maybe I need to listen. Maybe there's something I'm missing. And I've had that happen more times than I can count, where I was so stuck on my idea and I was trying to push my point with somebody. And then we weren't getting anywhere. I remember this one guy, and I just suddenly stopped. And I said, "Tell me again what you're trying to tell me." Like, I just stopped because we were getting nowhere. And he explained his concerns. And it was like, and it gave me a whole other view of another dimension of the security problem and why he wasn't able to directly address the issues, than I could see with my own limited self. Um, I had another example is around like dealing with business leaders. I had a product line I was working on, and there were a lot of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. This was a while back, so no current product. And I was trying to push the business to fix these issues. I was really, really concerned about it. And I went to this director of engineering, and I was just making my case. You've got to fix these because of X, Y, Z. And he just looked at me and he's like, "Andrea, do you think these security issues are the only issues the business leaders have on their plate right now, that the people that are running this product line have on their plate?" And I'm like, "Well, I was thinking it should be the only thing, but I thought about it, and I'm like, oh." He said, "So amongst all the high priority issues they're dealing with, where does this one fit?" And it was like such an eye opener, that maybe how can I work on a solution? What's the most risky element of this? How can we do this iteratively so that those business leaders can still meet their high priority objectives, which ultimately is the business, right? So, so that kind of like, seeing the other side, it's like, oh yeah, other people have priorities too, besides security, has been really helpful. So, you know, so kind of rounding it all out, when we talk about building influence through building relationships and networking and credibility and so forth, well, we have the influence, but how can we really drive, impactful change? Sort of be, if you will, a change agent. And I've touched on some of this, but I really wanted to. This isn't from the article, but I would say these are the things that I for one, have found critically helpful to me, especially in recent time. If I really were to look back and summarize, it's this Venn diagram of, the bringing my expertise to the table, listening and receiving expertise from others, collaborating with people by building bridges with them, rather than fences. Not being too worried about territory, like will they, what credit will I get or won't get or whatever. It's about building bridges and accomplishing a common goal, common mission, if you will. So building bridges and really working on my communication, my presentation skills, which is always a work in progress for me. Working on my ability to just generally communicate my ideas, I think communication is so key. Over communicate, over educate when needed in order to have impact. It sometimes, especially in the security field, it can take people time to really understand the ideas that I'm putting forth and that other folks that I work with are putting forth. Security can be a very complex and frankly scary topic for a lot of people outside the security field. So communication is critically important. And then just lastly, I would say the bullet around passion grounded in reality. I kind of alluded to that, but I'm very passionate about this field of security. I'm very passionate about it, and at the same time, there are business realities, and how can I collaborate with the partners outside my organization that I need to influence to, you know, help them become passionate too, but also help all of us succeed in meeting the goals, by talking through realistic plans, like I said, iterative development, risk-based approaches, etc. So kind of grounding that passion in reality, but still having passion. So what I have on this last slide is I have just some tools for that my toolbox, if you will. Calling myself change agent Andrea, but we all can be change agents. We all are change agents when we want to be. We certainly can be. And some of the tools that are valuable to me, there's one called SkyPab at the top, communication with impact, and highly encourage this. This is a messaging tool, if you haven't seen it, from Mandel Communications, that really it's a framework for presenting a message. The other one I found helpful when collaborating with other people is, even if it's just in the back of my head, is the 5 whys. Why is this important? Or, why should they care? But if I say, well, why is this important? Like, why are cross-site scripting vulnerabilities important? Then, and we could list the reasons why that might be important. It's like, well, why do I think that this product is at risk of that becoming impactful in the next 6 months, let's say? So kind of asking the whys to really hone in on what's most important and do root cause analysis as well. There are trainings and certifications, including WESIS, the things that are presented here. I added additional ones. Also, I found that in terms of, again, going back to understanding ourselves and the other people we work with, I think this is where strength comes from. So I think self-understanding really generates personal strength. The Clifton Strengths 34 is a really useful tool. It's really fast. You can do it in 35 minutes, and they give you ideas on how to build on your strengths. So building on your strengths rather than focusing on weaknesses. So like, what are my strengths? Like, my strengths are connecting with others. And so I can build on that, for example. Myers-Briggs personality assessment is another example. And then there's something called the DISC profile. And there's others that you may have, or you could even pop in the chat if you'd like. But understanding ourselves and others, some tools for that are shown here. So last but not least is the discussion. And on WESIS, there's a mentorship program page and I have the link here, month 2. And these questions, along with the link to the article, were posted there. And I put them here. So there's some questions in the chat that we'll address. But let me start with those. But these are some discussion points that we could also use. So I think we have we have quite a bit of time. So I'm hoping we can have some questions, more questions and discussion. Okay. Okay, great question. This is from Mary. Does lack of brevity always mean lack of confidence? Could it also be because your passion for the topic gets in the way and you over-explain? Yes, 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 absolutely. And so that kind of goes back to the grounding our passion in reality. Like the reality is that other people might not have the same passion. And so how to kind of catch ourselves, so it's like it's like thinking in their shoes. And that's been a challenge for me, is to think, well, what situationally, where are they sitting at? What matters to them, and how can I communicate to them at that, according to that. So I've had to kind of not over explain, even though I'm passionate. So no, it's not always lack of confidence. In my case, it tends to be, but there are definitely people who have way more confidence than I've started with. But passion is another one. Now you can see, how can I advise on ways to be more short yet succinct? So that SkyPap that I gave is one example. I think the other kind of quote, bottom line up front, what is it that you want to say? What is it you, like I said, imagine that you have 10 seconds left. What is it that you want them to take away? If you like the elevator idea, if you're in an elevator and you're in there with a leader that you really want to influence, and you only have those 10 seconds in the elevator, what do you want to say? I think the other one is to understand why you're saying it. I think why is also a helpful question. Okay, we just had those two. Any others? Barbara, hi. Okay, I'll read this. I have a lot of soft skills. Can everybody see these questions? I probably can, but I'll read it anyway. I have a lot of soft skills: organization, accountability, connections, understanding motivation, and a good breadth of technical knowledge, but not depth. How do I showcase my value when it's so heavily weighted to technical expertise? For example, I'm often asked to take notes because I'm good at capturing action items and summarizing, but mentors tell me to stop doing this if I want to be taken seriously. This is a really good one. Yeah, I actually had a director I worked for years ago who always asked me not only to take notes, but to clean the whiteboard. So I stopped cleaning the whiteboard and eventually moved away from his organization. But I think that the main thing is, in terms of showcasing my value, it comes back to communication again. The irony is that I've learned is that when I over explain, it dilutes my message and indirectly dilutes my value. I mean, this is when I say indirectly, it doesn't mean my personal value is taken away, but the impact from the value isn't articulated because people get lost. And so I think that articulating value is a little bit of salesmanship, a little bit of saying, why is this important to me? I think note taking is perfectly okay if, like, my boss is a vice president, and when he's in executive meetings, sometimes he takes notes, but he's a vice president. I think note taking when you're trying to build credibility and other people's trust and see for them to see your value, note taking can be a little bit problematic. I think it depends on the situation. It's worth spreading the love around when it comes to note taking and let other people do it too. And let me know if I answered the question, if you have a follow-up, okay, or if to what I just said. How do you handle the situation when you're brought for a fast-paced delivery, but the team's velocity is slow-paced and you arrived in the middle of the project and you are not their manager and management changes scope and priorities often? How do you manage that? Oh yeah, I mean, welcome to my world and a lot of people I work with. It's so real. That's a great one. So if you're brought for a fast-paced delivery, but the team's velocity is slow-paced, in terms of being able to speed up a project, and this has nothing to do with sort of cybersecurity, but just to be able to bring in the perspective of we need to move this faster. And it could be, for example, from speaking from a security perspective, it could be vulnerability remediation. So just kind of using that as an analogy, the fast delivery might be remediation of a critical or high profile vulnerability in X number of days, and you're working with let's say a development team on a legacy product, and they just aren't feeling the need or the same drive to get that done and yet it's really important. I think that it maybe coming back to, because that can be a very frustrating situation. That's where sometimes it helps me to sit down with people and say, hey, this is why this is important. Like, what can we do to speed it up? Try to get their ideas as well. Like, how can we make this happen? Let's figure out what is the most important thing, and let's target it now and start breaking it down into chunks. Sometimes people are just overwhelmed. So can we break it down into chunks? So I think like having communication, meeting with people directly, not just through email, can really help build those bridges and kind of take the steam out of some of the conversations, if you will. So that doesn't mean you're always going to be able to meet the deadline you want, but it can certainly help, not just for that immediate issue, but for future issues. It may take time. It may be a question of planting a seed for how to make things move more quickly. Okay, Antonia, by the way, that previous one was from Stephanie. Antonia, you're hitting all the points, especially as pertains to women and IT and cybersecurity. At a certain point in your career, it feels like constantly climbing uphill to gain mentors at new roles. At a certain point in a woman's career, I find fewer and fewer mentors. Okay, that's a good one. And I think I think that the mentor relationship changes dramatically. As I've become more of a leader and more, as you will, senior, the reasons my manager today, I would say, is my coach. I would say I've been very fortunate to land where I am now with the manager I have, because he really has done a lot to help me build a lot of the tools I need to, especially to go up a level in terms of working more at a senior leadership level, presenting to executives, getting my ideas across, building confidence, all that. Um, it's a little bit of a different focus than I had, say, mid-career or even especially early career. So the question is, what do I need from a mentor today that might be different than what I needed before? Does it need to be, let's say, does it need to be a woman? Like, or does it need to be like, what am I really looking for? Another thing is to be a mentor. So to whatever extent, I learn more from mentors or mentees. I learned so much from mentees. And I learn not just about I learn from them. And I also learned about myself. I think that mentees are, being a mentor can be another great way to kind of break through and figure out what those next mentors for myself need to be. Erica, do you have tips or advice for those of us who work remotely and don't have as many opportunities to build relationships and trust? Hey, that's been me since 2020. I get it. Yeah. Oh, here's one. Okay. This has this has been good for me. And if other people have ideas, pop them into the chat. But this has been good for me. Is again, try not to rely on email and IMing through Teams or whatever. Those are great tools, but so easy to get miscommunication. To have miscommunication happen. So having what I call workshops, but also having one-on-ones with people that are in my, that are stakeholders in what I'm working on. Like I have every 6 weeks, somebody from legal and I meet. Not even in my organization. I have one-on-ones with other people that are outside my organization, but really important to me. They're really stakeholders, and I'm a stakeholder for them. It's important we talk. So those one-on-ones are valuable. The other one is at the beginning of a meeting, relaxing and just asking people how they are. Just, hey, how are you? Like, people sometimes love to talk at the beginning of a Zoom call. If you've ever noticed, and like, what's going on with your family? What vacation were you on? I mean, it can only just be a minute, but those little interactions can be really powerful. Garima, you said that we should focus on our strengths and not on weaknesses. I try to do it, but I still start thinking about what I lack involuntarily when I'm in a challenging situation. What should I do in such situations? I'm with you. I am so hard on myself. I think having people around me who remind me of my strengths, having friends at work, friends outside work, people who are supportive, and that can also be mentors. Sometimes my manager, I sometimes will say to him, I really feel like I'm a failure here. I don't say it quite like that, but I'll say I feel like I missed the mark, and we'll talk it through, and he'll remind me of my strengths. And it's like, again, having somebody you work for who can support you, but mentors can do that, and other colleagues. So really listening for other people's words around your strengths and not just the self-talk. That's been helpful to me. Anna said, mentee here, what are some examples of lessons you've learned from your mentees? Well, one thing is I happen to be mentoring a few people right now and they're all in different organizations. And so it's helped me stay abreast. So like some are a couple are in product development over on the infrastructure solution side. And it's helped me stay more abreast of technology advancements because, I can get really, going back to breaking free of my own functional silo security. It's helpful to learn what other people are doing in their areas, like for multi-cloud or for, reverse supply chain or whatever it be. And so just technically speaking, it's been helpful. But other things that have helped me is just to kind of here's some of the things that they do. I have one person who's quite junior, who's a real go-getter, a real high achiever, and we're like totally different from a personality point of view. He's very confident. And so I learned ways to be confident. Here's this guy who's really a junior guy who's doing some amazing things above his pay grade with confidence. And it's like, I can learn from that example, without, you know what I mean? Without having to kind of say, he's better than me. No, 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 no. We all learn together. We learn from each other. Thank you. Okay, Erica, I'm trying to do those little interactions, and I'll start doing more regular check-ins and one-on-ones. Appreciate the advice. Oh, thanks for the feedback, and enjoy them. Okay, let's see. And the recording will be made available. Laura will make that available. And thank you for the feedback, Stephanie. Any more questions? Any more thoughts on the questions on the screen? We have another 5 minutes. Are there any tools that you use that, like, for communication or for understanding yourself and others, or presentation skills, the different training, anything that others have used that they've found impactful? Feel free to pop those in the chat for other people. Okay. We'll give it another 30 seconds, and then I'm going to wish you all well. Okay. I really appreciate the engagement and the feedback, the questions, and thank you so much for being here again. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks.